What's going on YouTube? RuneScape Novice here, coming to you with my very first installment of a series I'm going to refer to as Card Talk. Basically, I'm going to be discussing various cards throughout the game of Magic the Gathering. I might do it with other card games as well, but this is going to be MTG Card Talk. And the first one I'm going to be discussing is Mana Confluence. This is obviously the new land from the set Journey into Nyx, one of the 3 rare lands to be released. And it has been referred to as, by a lot of people, one of the best lands in a very long time. And I see posts all over the internet of people suspecting this card will be the next Mutavault as far as price and value and how everyone's going to run it, and people talking about debunking the hype and whatnot. Now, granted, while I've already been playing the game of Magic for a couple of months now, I do want to give my opinions on the Mana Confluence card and what I think is going to happen with it throughout the throughout the years of playing. I think Mana Confluence is a great card in that it is a pain land, but it taps for any mana of any color. Okay, so this is great if you run a tricolor or higher deck. I use it in my 3-color commander deck. Okay, I run a blue, red, black, or red, blue, black commander deck, and Mana Confluence is a great card in it because regardless of what mana I need, I can take the 1 life, tap it, and get that mana that I happen to need at the time. However, I don't think that Mana Confluence will ever reach the importance of Mutavault. And the reason why. Mutavault simply has too many great purposes. It is a colorless mana. It tap 1, it becomes a 2/2 creature of all types until end of turn. So it's used for swinging on your turn early on if you don't have any other creatures. Second turn you can hit with a 2/2. You can use it to block during your opponent's turn. If you run mana lands like Mutavault in your Simic deck, like I do, or counter decks of any kind, if you pump them up while they're creatures, they will maintain their counters even when they go back to a land. Now, I personally use Mishra's Factory since they're much more affordable, and I'm a kind of a broke college student. However, let's say you had pumped up your Mutavault with 4+1/+1 counters. Your opponent's turn comes around. They swing at you. Tap 1, put out your Mutavault. It's a 6/6 that you can use to block. Mana Confluence will never have that kind of amazing and versatile playability. As a matter of fact, I consider Mana Confluence only usable in a 3-color or higher deck. The reason why, if you're going to use it in a 2-color deck, then why would you even bother using the Mana Confluence? Okay, let's say you run blue-black. There are so many blue-black dual lands out there that are more affordable than Mana Confluence that will do the same thing, if not something better. Okay, I'll have a few examples here to show you. So again, read Mana Confluence's ability. Pay 1 life, tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Great, but if you're running blue-black, let's look at some other cards you can use, starting with the simplest and cheapest ones. Dimir Guildgate enters taps for blue or black. Then we have stuff like Yar Isle Refuge, enters tapped, you gain 1 life, and it taps for either blue or black. Now these are obviously inferior in that they come in tapped and they're slower to play, but they don't pain you every time you want to tap for it. You don't mind the pain? Okay. Let's look at Underground River, the blue-black pain land. This is actually better in a blue-black deck than Mana Confluence because it can also tap for a colorless without dealing any damage to you whatsoever. Then if you need the blue or the black, you can tap it and it will deal 1 damage to you. There is a pain land for, I believe, every color combination. So in a dual-color deck, why would you even bother running Mana Confluence when you can get a play set of pain land for the price of 1 Confluence, and they do the same thing, only a little better, due to the fact that you can also use them for colorless. Okay, again, tricolor deck and higher. Other dual lands that you may want to consider are stuff like Drowned Catacomb, Temple of Deceit, and Watery Grave. I believe in a dual color deck, the Shock lands, Tap lands, Scry lands, and Pain lands are all going to be superior to the glorified Pain land that is Mana Confluence. Okay, don't get me wrong, I do feel Mana Confluence is a great card, again, in a tricolor or higher deck. I do feel like owning them is definitely something you may want to do, if nothing else, for trade fodder. If you run a 3-color deck, definitely put 1 or place it in them. If you run an EDH deck like I do, it's a nice land to have. But in the end, it is just a glorified pain land. I don't ever see it reaching the $25 to $35 price tag of Mutavault. As a matter of fact, I would be surprised if it ever reaches anything higher than $15 again. I firmly believe that Mana Confluence will stay between $10 to $15 for the reasons I mentioned. Other comparisons I see are people comparing it to City of Brass. Okay, saying it's basically a reprint of City of Brass. This is not quite true either. Again, let's read the abilities. Tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Whenever City of Brass becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. Tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So yes, they seem fairly similar, but let me explain the ways in which City of Brass is better and the ways in which Mana Confluence is better. Mana Confluence is better than City of Brass in that if your opponent taps it using a card effect of their own, so, any card that says tap target permanent, maybe they're using, I don't know, Raul Zarek or something, Mana Confluence won't deal damage to you since you're not tapping and paying for your mana. You're not getting any mana out of it, but you're not taking any life. If they tap your City of Brass, even though you're not getting any mana out of it, you are still taking 1 damage because your City of Brass has become tapped. So in that regard, Mana Confluence is a better card than City of Brass. However, City of Brass has a few advantages over Mana Confluence as well. In that if your opponent plays a card that says you cannot pay life or players cannot pay life, City of Brass gets around that since it's dealing damage to you as opposed to you paying it yourself. So when it comes down to the deciding between City of Brass and Mana Confluence, those are the differences. They are very similar. I do feel like they're both worth running, don't get me wrong, but let's look at prices as well. This one right now between $10 to $15, average I think is about $13. City of Brass, if you get the Modern Masters version, is about $5. $3 if you don't mind running an older version. So in the end, you can get 3 City of Brass for the price of 1 Mana Confluence. And if you buy the older ones, you can actually get a playset before you can get 1 Mana Confluence. So just a few things to consider. I believe that Mana Confluence, again, is a great card, and I'm not putting it down by any stretch of the imagination. However, I'm simply giving my opinion as to why it is not as great of a card as everyone is making it out to be. Again, if you're running a dual-color deck, don't even bother with Mana Confluence, just get the old-school Painland and do it that way. Now, yes, you could always argue that not all Painlands are currently playable in Modern, and they're not playable on Standard. Well, that's very true. They're not playable on Standard. My answer to them not being playable on Standard is Watery Grave or Temple of Deceit, so on and so forth, and many of the Painlands have been printed in sets. If I'm not mistaken, they can be used to play in Modern. But for EDH and Legacy players, I don't really see this being an issue whatsoever. Vintage players, it's definitely not a problem since you have access to a very wide variety of land. So Mana Confluence. Good card, not an outstanding card. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's playable, but it's not the best card in the game. Alright, so I hope y'all enjoyed this series. Let me know what y'all think if y'all want to see more, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care.